Good morning. Hope you guys had a really great weekend. I hope the Algebra Keystones weren't too bad. Today we're going to go ahead and finish the end of the 1920 note so that you'll have them all done and ready whenever you need to study for your test. And just a reminder, your test is going to be on Wednesday. So last time we took notes, we were talking about this new mass culture that was going to be developed after the Second Industrial Revolution and after World War I. So everyone had gone out and we bought our cars, we bought our radios, we had our refrigerators and vacuum cleaners, and we were exporting stuff all around the world. But what we also start to see is that everyone now is watching the same thing. We are listening to the same thing. We are hearing the same videos, and we are all going to be doing the same stuff together at the same time, so we create this new mass culture. One of the first evidence we have of this new mass culture is going to be the creation of the radio station, and that is going to happen here in Pittsburgh. So KDKA is going to be the first radio station here in the United States. After that, we're going to start to see other stations that are going to develop as well, like CBS and NBC. And they're going to create all these new programs like sports programs and politics and entertainment shows and music shows that meant, again, everyone's going to go to work or school or hang out with their friends the next day, and they're all going to be excited and they're all going to be talking about these great new shows. We also going to see new music that's going to develop as well, so jazz, ragtime, and musicals. In terms of the new music, Louis Armstrong is going to be recognized for trumpet solos, and then Edward Blake Ellington is going to be conductor and composer of Big Business. It's going to blend a whole bunch of new sounds together. But it's not just sounds and radio that's going to be important. We also see new improvements also going on inside of the movie theater. So our silent movies all of a sudden now become talkies. So we start to see 123 million people are going to go to the movies. We're going to see 95 million movie tickets sold a week. And again, we create these new mass stars that are going to be internationally known and known inside all across the country. So Charlie Chaplin, Mary Pickford, and also Randolph Valentino are going to start to be mass stars that everybody knows. It's not just on the big screen and entertainment. We also are going to see lots of changes in professional sports. So professional sport teams is now something that you want to go and you want to see, and everyone's going to be participating and cheering on for their local teams. So Babe Ruth, who's a New York Yankee, is going to shatter the home run record in the National Baseball League. And you're also going to see Satchel Paige and Josh Gibson, who are members of the Negro Baseball League, the Homestead Grays, and the Crawfords. And they're going to also be smashing records throughout the time. It's not just at football and baseball that we see that changes. We also see changes in the football league. So Jim Thorpe is going to be the one who founds the American Professional Football Association. He becomes a president and also a player there. The National Football League Hall of Fame is actually going to be located in Canton, Ohio, which is going to be in Thornton's hometown. So we see all these changes in music and in movies and professional sports, but we also see changes due to our new inventions that occurred during World War I as well. We had used the airplane for the first time, and the airplane was now going to be used for bombings, but now the war's over, and we need to find new and improved uses for the airplane. So one of the first things we're going to see is that planes are going to be used in order to carry large loads and transportation of goods over long distances, relatively fast and relatively cheaper than you do in terms of ground travel. We also are going to see the very beginnings of people using the airplane for entertainment. At first, just the wealthy are going to do it. You get in your plane, you circle around the airport for half an hour, see the sights, come down, talk about it, tell all your friends, everything's great. But eventually this is going to evolve into what we use the airplane for today, which is going to be getting on a plane, going to a destination, and traveling. Besides destinations for airplanes, you also are going to see new records that are going to be broken for speed and distance. One of the first persons to become famous for this daredevil activity is going to be Charles Lindbergh. He's going to have a nonstop transatlantic flight that occurs in 1927. So he's going to fly from New York to Paris inside of the Spirit of St. Louis, which takes about 33 and a half hours to do. So he's going to become famous for his flight, but he's also going to be famous for something else as well, which is going to be the kidnapping and then murder of his son in 1932. So basically what ended up happening is they're going to go to the Lindbergh house. The perpetrator is going to put up a ladder. They climb up the ladder. They're going to take the baby out of his room in the middle of the night and then write a ransom note. So in the morning, Charles and his mother and his wife end up finding the ransom note, and they do contact authorities, and they do a pretty thorough search. It's only going to be later that they're going to actually discover that the baby has already been murdered prior to the ransom being received. This case is what's going to lead us to have kidnapping become a federal offense. What we also see in terms of daredevils is also Amelia Earhart. She's the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic and the first person to fly solo from Hawaii to the U.S. mainland. There was lots of controversy over what actually happened to Amelia Earhart. Her airplane is going to disappear about 7,000 miles before it has actually circumnavigated the globe, which was what her daredevil attempt was at that time period. So all of a sudden, this plane disappears. Again, we don't know exactly what happened, but there are a couple different theories. So the wreckage has actually never been found, but theory number one is that she crashed into the ocean, and that is why we can't find the wreckage. They have done lots of different methods in order to try to locate the wreckage, but they don't know they don't know exactly where she landed or how much gas she possibly could have had left. So there's a large, wide area where potentially she should have crashed. Second one is that she landed on an uninhabited island and eventually then died because they did not have any resources and she wasn't able to use the radio to contact authorities to let her for a rescue. We have never really found any concrete evidence. We do have a plane that was found on an island, which would have been around the area where her plane potentially could have crashed, but we're not exactly sure if it is the correct plane. There's no evidence that connects it directly to Amelia Earhart. The third option is that she was eventually captured by the Japanese. And in that last picture is the evidence that people have to prove that she potentially could have been captured by the Japanese. But we are, again, not 100% sure if the woman in the photograph actually is Amelia Earhart. Recently, we have some new discoveries that is going to support the fact that she landed on an uninhabited island and eventually died due to lack of resources. They do find a plane there. They're able to date the plane to around the right time period, and the plane is made of approximately the correct materials. The only problems are they have not actually found any remains, so there's no way that you can actually say 100% that this actually is Amelia Earhart. Besides our changes in the way everyone is going to live and how everyone flies and our new daredevils in the radio and our sports teams, we also have changes in our ethnic neighborhoods. The Harlem Renaissance is going to start in New York, and again, Harlem is going to be an ethnic neighborhood in New York City and is a cultural center for African American music, literature, performance, and art. So Langston Hughes is going to be one of the most famous poets, playwrights, and novelists from this time period. And he's going to incorporate a lot of things that are going to be associated with jazz music and also slang during the time period. And again, because people are hearing it and they're reading it and they're saying it, it's going to start to spread and it's going to become commonplace throughout the rest of society. We also have Claude McKay. He's a poet and activist. He's going to speak out against racial discrimination, and he calls for African Americans to stand up against lynching and other violence. So he's going to use his position during the Harlem Renaissance as being more of an activist in order to try to change society and try to change the future. We also are going to have other writers that are going to be extremely important during this time period. They're going to be known as the Lost Generation, and this is, again, a direct result of World War I. These are writers who experienced the war, were involved in the war effort, saw the terrors and the horrors of the war, and afterwards came back a little disillusioned with how society should function. They weren't really sure why they had to fight this war. Was the war really worth the effort and the number of people that died and the destruction? So they start to question society and also culture. They're going to be upset again about this idea that I have to return to normalcy. Let's get quickly back to buying consumer goods and products and going to dances and listening to the radio instead of really taking a look at how do I solve this war issue and that so we don't have future wars. They thought that everyone was being a little bit too materialistic, and they weren't really taking a look at the destruction that would just been caused. A lot of these members, people who are going to be from the United States, they actually are going to leave America in order to go live in Europe. They believe that European society is a little bit more sensitive to the terrors and the horrors that had happened during World War I. One of the most famous of these writers is going to be Ernest Hemingway, and he's going to write about expatriates. So these are the people that moved from the United States to Paris, and he writes about them in a series of books. The first one's going to be called The Sun Also Rises, and then you also have The Old Man in the Sea. You are having Ernest Hemingway. He's going to be a Pulitzer Prize winner in 1953, and also the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize in 1954. Beside Ernest Hemingway, we also have F. Scott Fitzgerald, which some of you guys will have known because you've had to read The Great Gatsby in English class, but he's going to be the author of The Great Gatsby, which is going to focus on the lost morality behind this fun and free spirit of the jazz age. So it's the roaring 20s, and everyone's supposed to have a great time, and we're supposed to go to parties, and we're breaking prohibition, and we're drinking, and we're going to all these different events and entertainments and sporting events, and it's great and it's fun, but they're not really taking a look at that everyone is not able to experience this level of entertainment. Some people are not able to feed their families, they don't have jobs, they're living in bad conditions, and everyone is putting on this great face about how great their lives are, when in actuality, some people can be living relatively rough lives. So again, he's going to eventually be seen as a spokesperson for the generation. His work in the 1920s was not regarded as something that was special or that was receiving literary acclaim or that people had to read. It's really not until the 1950s that people start to pay attention to what he wrote and start to take a look at The Great Gatsby as being this great literary work. He is going to write a series of other books as well, but none of them are going to be accepted well by the literary circles or by the public like The Great Gatsby. All right, next we have one more author, and that's going to be St. Clair Lewis. And he's going to be the first American writer to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. And he's going to write about Babbitt. And Babbitt is going to be this traveling salesman that's going to go across the United States selling all of these great new consumer products that we've just mass produced. And basically, he's going about talking about how these new consumer products are changing the world and changing society and changing the social system here of the United States. So that's the end of our note packet for the Roaring 20s. So you have all of your notes necessary in order to start studying for your test. Again, your test is going to be on the 23rd. You also are going to have inside of your Blackboard 1920s folder the review sheet for the test. And again, as always, you have the option for the extra credit by completing either the online game and submitting a link to me, or you can also share your completed review sheet with me in Google and also give me the link to that in that online game. All right, so tomorrow, all right, so we're done with the notes, and then what you have time, if there are any time left in class, and there's probably maybe anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes left, there's a very, very short quiz I would like you to take inside of Blackboard, just so that I know that you did listen to the lecture today and fill out your note packet. And then after that, if you have any time remaining, you can start working on your homework. The last 2 sections of the homework packet are going to be reviewed tomorrow in class. I would like you to have them done before you get to class, so it's not the first time you see the information. So if you have not already done so, you should start working on Chapter 24, Section 2B, 763 to 764, which is going to be dealing with minority rights. And then you also are going to have Chapter 24, Section 3, pages 765 to 769, which is going to be dealing with all of our new forms of entertainment. And then that's going to be the last section that you guys have to work on for the homework. And then after that, we will be ready again to take your test. So when you come to class tomorrow, you have a little bit of time to work on homework. After that, you can listen to the next lecture dealing with the answers to your homework packet. And then you'll have the remaining time to review for your test. And then we will go ahead and take the test on the 23rd. All right, have a good day, guys, and I'll see you on Wednesday.